Hey everyone, and welcome back. So today's video is a little bit different than my typical mommy vlog haul type video, but this is something that I had mentioned a few months ago that I wanted to share our experience and our journey with. For those that are just finding my channel through this video, welcome. My name is Caitlin. I am the mother of an 8-month-old. I've been married to my husband for just over 5 years, and I like to document our daily lives here on my channel, as well as sharing hauls and things like that. So like I said, if you are new to my channel, make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any of my videos. So today's topic, as the title states of the video, is talking about our experience with straightening out or resolving Sloane's flat head issue. Now, I do want to preface this video by stating that in no way, shape, or form am I shaming, bad-mouthing, saying that it's wrong for those that choose to go the doc band route. I do want to do a little bit more of like a story time with this as well, so that you guys can get my perspective as far as how this all evolved and why I made the decision, my husband and I made the decision to do something different besides putting a doc band or a helmet on our child. So I do have notes here. If you see me looking down, it's just I wanted to make sure that I was super thorough in this video and I didn't miss any main points that needed to be made. So like I said, there's no shame. I personally feel that anybody that chooses to go, this is with any medical or non-medical route, I would assume and I would hope that a parent or a guardian makes decisions based on, you know, research or experience or their beliefs, so they wholeheartedly feel that the decision that they made for their child is the best one for their child. I'm just sharing my experience as to why we opted not to go with the doc band and what we did instead and how that is working. To give you guys a little bit of a backstory, at Sloane's 3-month appointment, we had to see a different doctor. There wasn't anything out of the norm that I felt like we needed to see her pediatrician specifically for. But at that point, the pediatrician that we had saw felt her head, as they always do, and there was a visible or, you know, a noticeable flat spot. Now, for those that have not watched my videos, Sloane was born with a very full head of hair. At 8 months old, she has shoulder length hair, like beyond her shoulder length hair. So the flat spot was something that you couldn't visibly see, but if you felt her skull and you felt her head, you would know that it was there. And I knew it was there. It wasn't something that I was ignoring, but I also knew that as children grow and develop, it should typically straighten itself out. So I left that appointment with strict instructions to basically not let her lay on her back at all unless she was sleeping, that she really needed to be on her stomach or propped up, just off of her head. So I spent the entire month doing everything in my power between her 3-month and 4-month visit to get her off her back. I mean, literally from other than nap time and when she was sleeping at night, she was off of her back. We did a ton of tummy time. She was just at that point getting strong enough that I felt comfortable leaving her or putting her in an exerciser, and we would only do that for maybe like 10 to 15 minutes at a time, but multiple times a day. She hated her swing, so that wasn't really anything that we had to be worried about, but she loved the DockATot. So I held her a lot. I had her in a carrier. I spent essentially 4 weeks making sure that my child was not on her back, and I was determined that within that week or in that month we would see a lot of improvement. So we went back to Sloane's 4-month appointment, and I kind of had known that there wasn't as much progress as I had hoped for there to be. In my mind, I could tell that her head had shifted, but it was still flat. There was still, you know, some abnormal shape to her head. So at that point, we actually saw the same doctor that we saw the month prior. My doctor is amazing, or Sloan's doctor, I should say. Her actual pediatrician is amazing, and she's very, very hard to get appointments with. And because we were doing vaccines, I didn't want to delay or postpone visits so that we could see our choice pediatrician. So at that point, this doctor had informed us that she felt that she needed to be sized for a doc band, and that we would need to be seen by a head specialist, is what she called the doctor. And I apologize, that's one thing I don't even know what the name of that specialist is, but I know it as literally the head specialist. So I left that appointment in utter shock and disbelief. Like, I felt like I had failed my child. And it wasn't necessarily that the doctor had made me feel that way. It was just that I had tried so hard and I had done everything in my power to keep her off her back. But I felt like a failure. I felt like I had let my child down. So I got in the car and I immediately called my husband and told him, and I cried, and I just, like, there was this numbing feeling over me. And I know that probably sounds super dramatic, but it was that, like, I've done everything for my child and I can't make something better feeling. And that was probably the first time that I ever felt that as a parent. So I talked it through with my husband, and, you know, he's like, you know, you're a researcher by nature, do your research, figure out, you know, what we can do. If you're feeling one way or the other about a doc band. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't know a whole lot about it. I have, you know, I have people that I am acquaintances with, I guess, like Facebook friends and things like that. People from high school that I know that have had gone the doc band route with their children. I know about it from, like, Teen Mom or Young and Pregnant. There's the one mom on there that has her son in a doc band. I knew that was pretty much my exposure to a doc band. So I went home that night, and for like the next several days, I researched. And while I was researching, I had actually called the specialist and made an appointment to be like a consultation type visit. And when I set that appointment up, it wasn't even like, you know, we're gonna assess to make sure that we feel like they basically said, you're going to need to be able to provide, we're gonna go over the pricing, we'll get her fitted. Like, it was basically an appointment to move forward with the process. And that's where I kind of stepped back and I figured I need to really figure out if this is the best route for us. So I spent, like I said, days Googling and researching and watching YouTube videos, which there's really not a whole lot on. There's a whole lot of videos on, like, the doc band experience, but nothing like sit down type videos that I could find, or alternatives, and I'll get into that in a minute. But I found that the common downside of the doc band, there were several of them, but they were all the same. It was very much a pattern between, you know, the blogs that I had read or the videos that I had watched. And one was the cost. Typically, doc bands are not covered by your insurance. For us, it would not have been. I did look into that, and the pricing was, I believe it was between $1,600 and $1,800. I could be wrong on that because we opted obviously not to, but that was what we were quoted through for our insurance. So not covered, which that one wasn't a big factor for us, because the route that we did take in chiropractic care, has the pricing, even though a lot of it is covered by insurance, to maintain her care under chiropractic has exceeded what we would have spent on the doc band. The second one was that it's not, it's a quick fix kind of, and that a lot of times, since infants are growing so rapidly, that these children are outgrowing the doc band before it was even effective, completely effective. So I watched numerous, I would say probably 3 or 4 YouTube videos back to back where these children had outgrown the doc band before their, prescribed timing was up. They might, when you go in for these appointments, they set you up for, your child might need it for 18 weeks or 36 weeks or whatever the case may be, and these children were outgrowing the doc bands before, and they were given one of 2 options. 1, to be refitted and to pay that cost all over again, and 2, to pretty much give up, be done with it, and wherever their head ended up is where it was going to stay. So for me, that seemed kind of crazy that we're putting all of our eggs into one basket to get a quick fix, but my child's head might outgrow that quick fix very quickly. And Sloan has a relatively large head, and like I said, she has a lot of hair. So I could see that happening. That could have been our case. It's very likely that would have been our case, that she would have outgrown the doc band before it was even effective. So that was reason number 2. And the third reason that, or the third issue I saw was that it was just that it was a quick fix, but there was underlying issues as to why that child's head was misshapen. And that was what triggered my searching into alternatives. Like I said, it wasn't necessarily the cost. It wasn't necessarily that we might have to pay it twice. It was mostly because there's obviously an underlying reason. Children are not flat-headed in most cases from being on their back. That's obviously an extreme. If children spend 20 out of 24 hours a day on their back, of course that's going to have something. But a child that is up and moving and doing proper tummy time and things like that, that's not a reason as to why they're flat-headed. So I started researching into that, and with that research, I came across a video on YouTube, and I have searched and searched and searched, and I've gone through my history, and I cannot find how I came across this video, who this person was. I don't believe they were here in the United States. I want to say it might have been even like Puerto Rico that this family was living. So medical things were a little bit different, but this individual was going through a very similar situation to what we were going through with Sloan. This child was about the same age, and she had chosen to take a physical therapy and chiropractic approach. And so I was super fascinated in all of this, and I started researching chiropractic care literally my Google searches were chiropractic care to cure or to fix flat head. I was dumbing down my searches as much as I physically could to find the most information. And like I said, there wasn't a whole lot out about that, which is why I decided to do my experience with this. So as I was researching, I came across infant torticollis, which is essentially in an adult, you would call it a stiff neck, or I have a crick in my neck is something that we say here in Michigan. But it's essentially muscle strain, where in an infant, they feel that, and as an adult, we would stretch our neck, heat it with a heating pad, things like that. We would do things that would help us. Where for an infant, they feel pain or strain and they compensate for it. So over the next few days, I paid very close attention to when Sloan was laying down, and she was always compensating, and she was always favoring the left side, which is the side that she was flat on. And she really never turned her head to the right at all. So at that point, I didn't want to self-diagnose. I'm not a doctor by any means, but all the signs were there that she was struggling with tightness in her neck, that she wasn't at all really turning to her left side. So, I'm sorry, she wasn't at all turning to her right side. She was compensating and turning only to the left. So, I know of a chiropractor. My mom has gone to this chiropractor for many years, and I've gone with her. And in the office, there are pictures of like infants, and she has stories, and there's a lot of testimonials on infants, literally out of the womb infants that are adjusted, and they consider them chiro kids at this location that we go to. And these children are adjusted from, like I said, literally from birth on. And that stuck out in my mind. So I reached out to my mom, and she got me in contact with the chiropractor, and we went in for an assessment. And the way that the assessment worked was with thermal imaging. There's a specific name for it. And again, I tried to find it, but essentially what they do is they take this thing that's a thermal imaging machine, and they roll it up and down the spine, and then they do it behind both ears. And what that shows is tension or misalignment that's non-intrusive, like having an x-ray or something like that done. So she said, typically with all the symptoms that you're showing, what we're going to see is red, which is the most extreme tension, up at her neck, where, you know, if this is the issue, and you're going to see it in the very lower back. Well, sure enough, the entire right side of her neck, from her earlobe to about her armpit on her spine, was bright red, showing that there was a lot of tension, and that was why she wasn't turning. So at this point, Sloan is 4 months old, and we decided as a family, and with, you know, having faith that this is the proper way for us to treat the underlying issue as to why she has a flat head. So at this point, our mindset completely shifted from we need to straighten out her head, which is what the pediatricians are so concerned about, to we need to figure out what and cure and fix the underlying issue as to why she has a flat head. And at that point, she was diagnosed with torticollis, infant torticollis. And we signed her up, and we went with a plan of treating that. So she started, her first adjustment was, I believe it was like October 1st or 2nd. I'd have to go back and look at my calendar, but it was the very, very beginning of October. And she was adjusted 3 times a week for 4 weeks, and then it went down to 2 times a week for a few weeks, and now we're down to 1 time a week. And we're about 3.5 months out from the initial diagnosis, and at 3 months they consider it a progress report. So they once again did that same thermal imaging, and I kid you guys not, there was not an ounce of redness on her neck. Not an ounce. And the amount of mobility that this child has gained, obviously she's growing. I understand that her upper body strength is going to improve, but she has shown so much improvement. She has not been sick. She has had an incredible range of motion. She is army crawling all over the place. She is everywhere. And her head is straightening out. It's insane. It is absolutely insane. So while it's probably happening at the same rate that a doc band would have corrected her head, she would have forever had the same issue until she was verbally able to tell us, my neck hurts, I have neck pain. We would have been addressing the situation completely backwards from what needed to happen. We addressed the torticollis, the cause of why her head was flat first rather than opposite. And the chiropractor that we see definitely has more of a holistic approach to medicine, and she was explaining to us that with a helmet, it fuses the skull together far quicker than it's supposed to be. So obviously, maybe it's not obvious, but with infants, their head is very soft. You'll tell, every time they go to the pediatrician, they feel their soft spots, things like that. Well, the helmet or the doc band will force that to go together far faster than it's supposed to, and sometimes it'll end up over on top of each other, which is causing all kinds of obvious issues. She is under the feeling, and with my research I would agree with this, that the doc band 100% only fixes cosmetic issues. Sloan just woke up, so I'm going to wrap this up really quickly. It's 100% to fix cosmetic issues. A flat head is nothing more than cosmetic. Obviously, if it's super extreme and it's, the skull is resting on the brain, things like that, that's a whole different ballgame. That's not where we were at. For us, it wasn't even that her head was flat enough that it was going to affect her, her appearance or things like that. She wasn't going to have misshapen eyes, or she wasn't going to be lopsided or anything like that. It was 100% cosmetic. And that's what I'm here to tell you guys, is that you have to address the issue, the underlying issue as to why your child has a flat spot on their head. And then just by observing and researching and having some knowledge as to these things makes a world of difference. If I hadn't been so diligent and so on top of my research, I would have 100% gone to that appointment and had her put in a doc band. So for us, just doing that research and getting ourselves knowledgeable about the situation as a whole, looking at all aspects of it, because I'm not saying I was against a doc band. I'm not saying that I am currently against it. If your child literally has a misshapen head because that's just what it is, and you are concerned about those cosmetic things, or it is going to affect them long term, that they are going to have lopsided features and things like that, of course, that would be your option. I would never say that, like I said, I'm not one way or another. I'm just stating, do your research, be your child's advocate. Opted and decided to go a different route and not go the doc band route, and it's effective, and these doctors are seeing that it's effective, and I've never been questioned about it. But the bottom line to this is, like I said, when I was doing a lot of research, I didn't find anything much about alternatives to a doc band. So I wanted to share our experience that we are, like I said, we're about 3.5, almost 4 months out from her initial chiropractic adjustment to fix the torticollis, which was causing her flat spot, and she is 100% torticollis free at this point, as well as her head is almost perfectly round. I say that because I don't think any one of us has a perfectly round head, but it's not flat hardly at all anymore. So like I said, the bottom line is, do your research, be your child's advocate. If you have any questions or concerns, find out what the alternatives are. Sometimes in your heart as a parent, I feel like when things are just a little too extreme. When you feel like things are taken too far. And for me, rushing into putting her into a doc band was that. And I took the time and I researched and I found an alternative that obviously through, her physician wasn't even an option. It wasn't discussed. It wasn't talked about. So do your research as parents. If you have any more questions or if you'd like further updates on this, I am an open book. I will be happy to share those things with you guys. I would have shared her thermal imaging, but her name is actually through her spine on them, and for obvious reasons, I don't want to share that. But it is really, really impressive and amazing what the body can do for itself rather than a device. So again, if you are a doc, you're a parent of a doc band baby, that is amazing. I'm glad that you took the means to do something about the situation, and not at all am I trying to badmouth, shame, any of that. I'm just sharing our experience with an alternative, which was chiropractic care. So, like I said, if you have any questions, make sure that you leave them down below, or you can message me, whatever the case may be, and I will be happy to answer those. If you have any further insight or experience in this, I would love to hear your stories down below as well. This is a very different type of video for me, so I hope I got my point across. Like I said, I had notes. I tried to stick with it. It could have gotten a little long-winded, but I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will be back with another video soon. Bye, guys.